Everyday people in everyday places across the world are finding God. All of this has been made through him. He has promised to be with us. Where are you seeing him? Let's get sharing. Encounters. Stories of encounter with God.
Hi there, my name is Donna, and the God story that I would love to share with you, the God encounter I'd love to share with you, is one that's been one of the most distinctive in my life. It's taken place over the last few months, really, and about 3 years ago I moved back to the southwest of England where I grew up to work, and I hadn't found anywhere to settle as my spiritual home, my worshipping church community. And I was driving back from a residential weekend as part of my work one day, and I was really praying as I was driving along the main road in Devon. I was really praying, Lord, I want to find somewhere to be my spiritual home now. And I can honestly say at the moment I prayed that prayer, a signpost to the right-hand side of my eye almost flashed at me. It literally felt like it flashed with a bright light. And it was the signpost naming the village where I felt therefore called, unsurprisingly, to go and check out as a place of worship potentially. So after that sign had flashed at me so brightly, I went to that church, and my husband accompanied me, and I'd never been there before. I didn't know the ministers, knew nothing about it. And I remember sitting there, and as the choir came out and started singing, I melted into tears. I remember the tears were just streaming down my cheeks, and I'm not someone that happens to very often at all. I was almost moved by my own movedness, as it were. I was so surprised that this was happening to me. And because something inside me just cracked and broke open, there was a sense of, I'm home. This is reminding me of who I am and where I'm meant to be. This place just feels like home. It feels like the church I knew when I was a child as well. This is where I'm meant to be. So I felt, well, I really feel like I am meant to be in this place. So I joined the choir, and the first Sunday that I turned up to be in the choir, I was all robed up. First Sunday in the choir, and literally 2 minutes before the service began, the director of music came up to me and said, are you licensed to minister in this diocese? And I said, yes, I am. I'm a priest licensed to minister. And he said, well, our clergy person has not turned up. There's 2 minutes to go. Do you think you could take the service? And it was the most extraordinary 2 minutes, quickly getting my head around what I needed to do. The team there are fantastic. So they were basically able to do everything and just to tell me really crisply and quickly what needed to happen, which was great. And I had this very symbolic moment where I put a priest's stole over my choir dress and was behind this altar on that first morning, and I felt like the Lord was saying, this is where I've called you to be, behind this altar wearing this stole. So up you get behind the altar. This is where you're meant to be. And after that, the members of that church told me that they couldn't, for as long as they remember a time when the vicar just hadn't turned up. The clergy person who was appointed for that day just hadn't turned up. So it was an extraordinary accident that led to me feeling profoundly called to serve in that church. There was also, alongside 3 things you've seen so far, the most incredible sense of welcome. There was a sense of my intuition about being called to that place being affirmed with words, because members of the congregation not only had this glorious welcome, but they would say things like, we really feel we're in a season where the Spirit is blowing in new people like you, and you're so welcome here. So there was just such a sense of affirmation and a sense that the Spirit had prepared the welcome. And the congregation, the people who receive you with love and hospitality, they were welcoming you in. They wanted you there, which was just amazing. And then just a few months ago, I turned up. I was wondering about whether or not to be licensed to that place more formally, and while that question was pending, I turned up one morning in the church, and there was no service there, and I'd missed the notice somehow. And so I walked in nevertheless, and I encountered 2 groups of people, 3 women who were beautiful. They were like angels, and they were crying because they had travelled to the church because their mother, who had died a year ago, was buried in the churchyard, and they wanted to join the service that morning and then pray next to her grave. And they had arrived just realising that they hadn't checked the calendar and there was no service there that morning. And I was able to pray with those three women on our own in the church, just to have some really quiet, beautiful prayer together and to pray for their mother and to commend her again to God's care. And they were so deeply moved by that. And I don't think I've ever felt more like a priest. This purely spontaneous opportunity to minister to these beautiful women who just reminded me of the women at the Lord's tomb. They were so gracious and so holy and so sad. And there was a guy there as well who said, I don't even know what I'm doing here. My wife's outside and she doesn't know why I've come in here. And he said, my father has literally just died. And he was clearly just a really lost soul who, even not knowing why, had found himself wandering into the church. I would suggest drawn by the Spirit into that place. And I just felt, do I need any more signs that I'm called to serve and to be a servant of the Lord in this place? And so I remain there joyfully, knowing that this is my calling, and there has been sign after sign. And I think the final thing I just want to share with you guys is one of the patterns I feel I've noticed in these things is that if you are following the Spirit's pathway in something, once you get over that first moment, that first occasion where you say yes, it's like the signs just keep following more and more extravagantly, one after the other. As soon as you say yes, it's just sign after sign after sign, and heaven knows what may become possible because we've said our yes to God.